And what that meant was I essentially went from about $30 million in stock to about 100,000,
Wow.
what seemed like overnight.
Wow.
And, at that point, I was 31, 32 years old. I had three kids, and really I was bankrupt.
Hmm.
I mean, practically, because I was told and believed that I had all this money on paper, and probably did at one point, but that left a really bad taste in my mouth, and left that company on relatively good terms and acquired a subsidiary of that company and continued to grow, businesses from there, and had a variety of exits and whatnot, and started a number of other companies. But I think what really became the definition of my life from sort of 2000 through 2010 was addiction.
Hmm.
It was trying to manage my alcoholism, my drug use, a life that was completely out of control, just really losing my mind. And there was a lot of trauma that set in to the recapitalization of Trivergent Nuvox. Um, you know, After that happened, three of the co-founders committed suicide. So, one of my best friend, my very best friend. So, a lot of kids with no dads. And I honestly made it out by the skin of my teeth. And there was another individual who I won't name who was a C-level exec. Same thing. I mean, he barely made it out alive from that scenario. And it may sound a little bit corny, but I should say when I wrapped everything uh about me and my success perception, uh, you know, I felt like money, status, C-level was it. And when I lost that, it I cratered. It crushed me along with the other members of the management team. So, you know, certainly I don't ever recommend going through a recap, and I hope you never have to go through, some of the stuff that we went through, especially losing good friends.
Yeah.
I learned a lot. I learned a lot through it, but ultimately, that led me down a road of addiction, and it led to a period of my life that was entirely out of control, complete insanity. And it started ultimately my recovery and my trips through treatment. And I first went to treatment in 2010, and stayed 6 weeks and got sobriety, and stayed sober for quite a bit of time, almost 5 years, and relapsed in Charleston, by the way, Chuck.
Wow.
It
Wow.
halls. It halls.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
was my relapse at Halls. They probably don't want that advertised, but that happened. Um, but the thing is, Chuck, like I ultimately had to go through treatment 5 other times. I mean, I've been institutionalized for well over 6 months. I've been in a state licensed mental institution for 3 months, and it's a scary, dark place. But through that and through the experience of that, I believe I've become an enormously, like, a better person, a better human,
Mm.
certainly a better friend, father, at the time, husband. And it there was a light that began to shine on what was important to me.
Wow.
And through that, I started a company called U-Turn Health,
Mm.
which is now the world's largest platform of therapist-led video content for addiction, where we really focus on the families. And we're doing great work. I mean, I'm not involved in the company anymore. I exited that. I'm still a shareholder, but left day-to-day operations. And I think I've told you this, Chuck, before. Like, it's the only company that I've ever done that I'm proud of.
Wow.
It's everything else has been a run for the roses, chase for money and status, and I would get it, and it was meaningless. I'd lose it, it didn't matter. I actually felt better to lose it than make it, because it hurt, and I enjoyed the pain.
Mm.
Um, but a variety of crazy times, but building a company where I was giving back and helping people,
Mm.
like meaningfully helping, veterans in South Carolina, or individuals transitioning out of jail or prison, dude, that's cool. I mean,
Wow.
it's really cool. And it's, I think, as I look back at anything I've done, that's the one thing that really sticks out is, like, what else is there in life, man? What else is there when you can help somebody and do good work? And I've learned since that time, like, that's what I have to have in my career. That's what I have to do day in and day out. I have to give, I have to help. And if I do that, I am fulfilled.
Yeah.
And if I am fulfilled, then I feel good about myself. There's self-esteem, and I can continue my life in the path and the way that I want to lead my life, which is, in line with my morals and my ethics. I sure, like, I slip, there's no doubt, I make mistakes, but I attempt to live in the way that I think my family, my mom who's passed away, would be proud of.
Sure.
And part of that's just given, man.
Yeah. Shay, that's an incredible story. One reference point, and my whole purpose in just sort of unpacking that story, and again, we could spend hours, right, unpacking that. But you made a reference point in your TED talk about, maybe it was at the crucible of the suffering where you were alone in a hotel room with a loaded gun and enough
Mhm.
cocaine to kill, 10 people or whatever. Um, and I tell you, that gripped me, and it gripped me for multiple reasons. But having gone through a dark chapter in my life, a long divorce, that I wore the D word on my forehead and on my chest, and it was incredibly painful because it sort of destroyed everything that I thought I would be in life. And
Mhm.
all of us go through those deep, dark. A friend of mine calls it the dark night of the soul, right? We go through
Mhm.
those moments, and yeah, I can tell you this, and this is show is not about me, it's about you and your story and the impact that you're making in life and business. But I can tell you, having gone through that dark chapter, there were days where I could just not I'd sit and watch the TV that was not on for hours, you know, uh,
Yeah.
and just couldn't get out of bed and was just debilitated because I was just in such a funk. And 15 years ago, I would have said, the divorce word um, would never come out of my mouth because I'll never
Mhm.
be that person. And then, life just hands you difficult situations. And so I said all of that to say this: the vulnerability, the transparency, the rawness of what you just shared. And you probably have 100 stories of that, right? Of that
Yeah,
vulnerability that you could share, including that hotel room. You, I'm sure,
absolutely.
I'm sure you remember it vividly.
Well, I was pretty drunk. It was kind of day 2 or 3 of a pretty, scary bend or situation. What's crazy is I'd been sober for almost 5 years, and that was the tail end of an 18-month relapse. And I think a lot of people that don't really understand addiction, and addiction is a very wide ranging disease. It doesn't have to just be drugs or alcohol. So it's a lot of different stuff.
Right.
But relapse is not an event.
Mm,
It's a process. It is a slow process of unwind. And for me, it took almost 18 months, and it did culminate in disappearing completely, going off the grid, and being in a hotel room, to your point, with as much drugs and alcohol, cocaine as I could stick in my body in a loaded 38. I still have a picture on my phone of of the table in the hotel room with cocaine and bottles everywhere in the 38.
mm.
And I have a video, and I haven't watched it in years, but I know what it is, and it is frightening. It is
Wow.
absolutely frightening. If you would see that, if you watched it, just as somebody that cares about me as a friend, you would be freaking terrified
Wow.
and distraught to see it. And I think that business owners, the amount of stress, especially in startup life, and craziness that we go through, without some healthy outlet to deal with the challenges, I know I will tend to find things that are not healthy, and it can be anything. It can be social media, it could be food, it could be. I mean, for a while it was working out. Like I meal prepped on Sundays like a lunatic and counted macros throughout the week. I mean, it's crazy the way my mind would work.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't drugs or alcohol, if it was that, if it wasn't that, it would be women. If it wasn't that, it would be something. It would be gambling for a while. So it's such a struggle building companies and finding that way to relieve the need to self-soothe. Is It's difficult to find the healthy one, I think, and a lot of us struggle. It's not. I mean, I know I'm not alone, and I know there's a lot of people out there that struggle all the time with this stuff. And the thing I've learned, Chuck, more than anything else, and I think the big takeaway is it's not necessarily the details of the struggle or where it was. Everybody's situation is different,
Right.
and it's really hard to compare despair. I mean, despair is, you have your level, I have mine. It's it is what it is. But the ability to fall down
Mm.
and really, scrape the knees and get up and start again and go through that cycle again and again and again. I think it builds resilience
Mm.
and self-confidence in a way that can only be achieved by pain. It,
Mm.
it can only come through pain. And it's not pain. I don't seek out pain for the sake of seeking pain, but I do know that if I'm sitting in it, and I've had some situations recently where I had to sit in it and it sucks,
Mm.
but I didn't run from it.
Mm.
You know what I mean? I
Right.
sat in that pain. I didn't drink over it. I didn't take drugs over it. I didn't go crazy over it. But I know now how to sit in it. I
Yeah.
know how to feel it. I know how to process it and let it go. Those are all tools that if you're a startup, if you're, at year 20 in the company, you need to know how to work those tools to keep yourself, level set and even keel so you can offer the very best. And that's what I've always thought is, as I went through these struggles, I remember so many times thinking, all I want to do is give the very best to my kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to give the very best Shay to my family, and I can't fucking do it.
Mm. Mm.
But what is wrong? Like, it always came back to what is wrong with me? What is the issue? And it took a long time to get to the bottom of the well, if you will to figure out that pain and those traumas and work on them and deal with it. And my relationship with my kids now is better than it has ever been. My ex-wife and I, we were married 26 years. It's a fantastic, beautiful, respectful relationship. And my new relationship's great. I mean, I am super blessed, and I'm thankful and grateful for every moment of the meat grinder that I went through,
Wow.
because it's made me who I am, and it's allowed me to try to give and to help.
Wow. Well, Shay, I say this as your friend, and I'll say it as a host of the Chuck Crumpton Show. Um, we talk about being real and raw on the show, and you can't fabricate that, right? You either bring it, you have it, or you don't, and you have brought it. And I think it's so important. And we're gonna pivot to business, but to know Shay Houser at his core, which we now do, I think illuminates the path of listening to you as a, you know, billion-dollar success story on the business front, right? We know who the man is, and
Yeah.
that's incredibly important. So
Mhm.
I applaud you, man, for the vulnerability, for dredging up some of those pain points in your life to illustrate the struggles that you've been through, the joys and the the old adage, the victory of winning and the hurt of losing, right?
Yeah.
Thank you for giving us a peek into your heart and into your soul.
Heck yeah.
I'm gonna do some rapid fire questions because again, we have so many CEOs and business leaders that listen. Um, I'm sitting here with chills on my spine, and I'd love to camp out where we were just at for
Yeah,
hours.
man.
But let me rapid fire some questions at you.
Okay.
When the entrepreneurs of our audience, when, as I said in the beginning, you've done over $1 billion in M&A work, probably far exceeding that now. But when they hear the B word, the billion word, it may seem to be out of reach, unattainable, right? For
Mhm.
the guy or the lady sitting in their tool shed trying to just figure stuff out. How do you bring them into this conversation, right?
I mean, look, it's one transaction at a time. It's in the $1 billion includes fundraising. It's not just M&A, but yeah, I don't know what the number is now. It doesn't even matter.
Right.
But it really is. It's kind of like the old adage: how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. It's really the same thing. It's I had lunch with one of our investments, the CEO, yesterday, and part of